with soft clay. So I've got maybe, what do I have here, like 4 or 5 pounds for the pad. And just center that, spread it out.
Keeping your pancake meaty is really important. Don't make it too thin.
Yeah. So you want that to go, you want the pancake to go right out to the edge of the wheel, or at least the outside ring. So let's say 5 pounds. Then you take that bit and continue to bring that out. Maybe there's about 1/4 of an inch spacing between that last ring and the end of the wheel head. So go down, right down to the wheel head, pull up another one. And 3 should be sufficient. And then, just bring them up roughly the same height. I wouldn't spend all day getting it perfect, because when you slam that bat down, it's going to flatten out anyways. And then I usually just put a couple of lines across like that. Just chop it out a little bit. Just grabs. Better than that. Actually, what I'm going to do is throw a small plate first in the conventional way of plate making, traditional way of plate making, so you can compare the two. Have you made plates? Have you guys done plates?
No.
Small plates?
It's flatten cylinders. So what he's doing right now is really important too, because you want to make sure that your bat is level. If you've got your bat kind of like this, it's going to cause you problems when you start to throw.
Yeah, and also as centered as possible. It doesn't have to be perfect, but just mark it on the outside where it moves away from your finger. That means it has to come in a little bit. So once that's centered, yeah, then the up and down thing, if it is like that, you could throw it okay, but when you go to trim it, it means that having thrown it unevenly, you're going to have a thin side and a thick side. And so when you trim it, you're going to trim right through the thin side. So important that this be reasonably flat.
So try and center everything as best you can.
Up, down, up. So that just mark it. A little bit of tapping on the high side will usually even it out. Okay, so this is just like a dinner plate. 6 pounds. Maybe a little bit large for some people's standards. My dinner plates don't fit into the washer. No,
6
the
pounds?
washer very well.
That's like 2.5 kilos almost.
Seemed like a lot.
And more.
So here's the big difference between the big platter and the small plate. Centering. So I'm centering it, up and down a couple of times, as you would anything, cylinder. And then, once you've got it centered, hands in the same position. At least there's 2 or 3 different methods of centering clay, but I use the left hand in, right hand on top, and I just keep it in that position to flatten this out into a plate. If I was making a cylinder, I'd start now making my cylinder, but if I'm making a plate, I keep centering it, keep it in the centered position, and just press down.
So you always use full hand.
One. So the outside hand is keeping this on center. If I just do this, it's quite likely that I'll lose my centered circumference.
And so that when you're pulling it out, you don't get that overhang.
Yes, you don't want to have an undercut.
Right.
Fold the clay over and trap a big air bubble in there. So then, once I've got this, I'll work on my plate curve a little bit. Ooh, air bubbles in here.
So it's kind of like a bowl in that sense. You're sort of like establishing the curvature before you start to really pull up the sides.
This is a great rib for any plate size. The big flat metal ribs. You have these because you can hang on to them with both hands. Should spend a little more time wedging my clay. Hard to get rid of an air bubble. It's okay. So, the majority of dinner plates are trimmed on the bottom. So, how do you know where your thickness is at? You know, your foot ring gets trimmed onto the bottom, so you need to leave extra clay to have that recessed area inside the foot ring. So for a dinner plate, you know, you're leaving about, what is that?
An inch
Slightly less than half an inch, maybe.
more.
No more.
More?
Almost an inch.
3/4, yeah. You guys use inches?
The slab roller uses centimeters.
2
We
centimeters.
found out.
Okay. Then, so that I get what I'm doing is I'm getting my thumb underneath the pancake. It's under there. Sponge, using the sponge on top of the lip. So all hands, elbows in, or you're not just kind of sitting back, driving the Ferrari. You got to get in there like this. And bring that donut straight up. So that pulling action happened between my thumb and my forefinger on this hand. Okay. Then maybe I'll do a regular pull, you know, where you would pull up a cylinder, get a little bit more of this thickness. Now you want to leave a fair bit of clay down there for support, but there is still another pull here, little pull. That's about it. Don't want to get too thin in here because when you lay the plate down, it'll collapse. Then it's all ribbing from here. No more water. A little bit of support on the outside, so you kind of have to flip this hand over. Left hand riding along the outside, right hand holding the rib. See the two hands are working together, they're touching. I'll take it down there. It's not the finished angle, because I want to go back and define this a little bit more.
How many of you guys have a rib like normal versus easy right now? Anybody? Be a good thing to get for flavors.
Serious bubble there, yeah. Okay, so now I've got my eating surface. I think the standard is, industry standard is 8 inches. And then depends, like you could do a small flange. Like this is not really considered part of the eating surface, but it provides an area for decorating. I did a series of dinner plates where all of this was pierced, cut out, like there were holes, decorative piercing through the outside.
No sauces allowed.
No sauce allowed. And then the last thing you do, now at this point, if your clay is really soft, like I like to throw dinner plates with clay that's a bit firmer than this, so that I can actually rib that down and finish the plate. But if you are not satisfied with the angle of your flange, you can let it sit. And I think they do this with the big platters, right? They let them rotate on the wheel for an hour or two, let them dry out, and then they continue flattening them.
Yeah, and you do that with press molded plates too. So if you do the other side of the project, it's good to let it dry in motion so that when rim does start to come up, you can come and correct it.
So then after I define that a little bit more, then I'll just bring this down to its final. You cannot go flat. As soon as you go flat on the bigger plate or the smaller plate, and it starts to do this a little bit, you might as well just cut it off. You'll never save it, and if you leave it as is in the drying and the firing, that little bit of unevenness will, it's lost its structure, and it'll continue to slump. So. See that extra thickness in there. So the foot ring will be that'll be trimmed away, and then right about there where the curvature of the plate kind of, it's a continuous curve. You can have flat bottom plates as well, but I think most potters choose to do a slate curve. But where the curve kind of not changes direction, but becomes a little flatter or more horizontal, that's usually where your foot ring goes. So there, and then continuing to trim that out. So that's what you're removing, that's what you're taking away.